Hi, so today I want to talk to you about screen time and how parents should limit their kids' screen time. So, YouthFirst.inc, the author gave a list of benefits of reducing screen time. There were 6 different benefits that he listed. These were that it improves sleep habits, there's better focus and brain function, increased academic success, decrease in obesity, better vision, and a lower risk of experiencing anxiety and depression. According to healthmatters.nyp.org, nearly half of all children under 8 have their own tablet and spend an average of 2 hours a day on those digital screens. So, some of the things that we're going to cover are brain development, how that's affected by screens, creativity, the physical effects of screen time, and then age to screen recommendations and some strategies that we can use in limiting screen time. So, as far as brain development goes, there's an article from Psychology Today talking about how it damages the brain. So, there's a couple things here. It does cause issues in the gray matter of the brain. It shows that there's some shrinkage or loss of tissue volume in that gray area of the brain, which is important because this is where processing occurs. Also, there is an effect on the frontal lobe, and the frontal lobe is important because it's responsible for functions like planning, prioritizing, organizing, and impulse control. The frontal lobe undergoes massive changes from puberty to mid-20s. So that's why we really want to be careful that we're taking care of that part of the brain. Also, there is some volume loss that is involved in the reward pathways and suppression of socially unacceptable impulses. There's also damage to the insula, and that's where there's a capacity to develop empathy and compassion for others. And finally, loss of white matter. So the white matter is more so where communication is involved in the brain. Healthymatters.nyp.org published a study by American Medical Association of Pediatrics. In this study, they found that screen time can be associated with delayed development. 1-year-olds exposed to 4 hours showed delays in communication and even had issues with problem solving by the ages of 2 to 4. It is also associated with developmental delays in fine motor and personal social skills by the age of 2. Also, they did some other studies which came from National Institute of Health, and this found that children who spent more than 2 hours a day on screen time activities scored lower on their language and thinking test. Some children with more than 7 hours a day showed a thinning of the brain's cortex. And this is the area of the brain that's related to critical thinking and reasoning. So as far as creativity goes, whenever you're not bored and you're just on screen times, you don't have time to be creative. So in an article from parents.com, the author had pointed out that less social media and gaming means kids spend more time interacting with friends and family. They go outside, they get exercise, they decide to read. They have nothing better to do but figure out something to do besides screens. Children's.com published an article with Dr. Holland, and he gave his own perspective. He stated the brain is designed to develop from human interaction and exploration of the natural environment. Not being bored means the brain has no chance to be creative. So this also was another perspective of Nurture.com. They said sometimes we just need to be bored. Boredom is a powerful source of creativity and self-discovery. So some of the physical effects that are mentioned from Children's.com with kids that spend too much time on screens. They may not drink enough water. They eat more convenient things like chips, candy, just on the go. They're not worried about sitting down and having a meal. So they don't get those nutritious snacks because they don't want to leave their screens. They engage in less physical activity. They're more sedentary. They neglect typical routines. They get distracted and caught up playing their games. So maybe they're not showering or brushing their teeth like they should, or staying up late and not going to bed at their bedtime. It can also, in turn, cause GI issues like constipation because they're not moving around, because they're not eating good meals with fiber and all of that. Nurture.com says screen time can disrupt natural sleep. It impacts the melatonin production. Also, prolonged screen time has an effect on their eyes. It can cause strain on their eyes. It can cause pain in their neck and their shoulders. And all of this leads to headaches, tiredness, blurry vision. It can excuse me. So there's some age to screen time recommendations. Some of these are coming from parents.com and some from healthmatters.com. So if a child is less than 18 months, they should just not have any screen time at all. Anywhere from 2 to 5 years old, they really do not want them to have no more than an hour a day, which if you think about it, that is hard to achieve because you do see kids at restaurants or at home. Parents are having to use it as a babysitter. But later we'll get into some strategies of giving parents different things that they can do besides using screens to help keep their child entertained. So for young kids, especially around 3, development is happening rapidly. Excessive screen time limits the ability to observe and experience everyday activities. Also, this is a time when language development grows. It's basically through the ages of 1.5 to 3. So they should be learning by engaging with their parents and other children and adults. And, even if they are at a restaurant, teach them how to talk to the waitress and do their order and different things like that. So there was an article called Back to School, How Screen Time Affects Children's Developing Brains. And it said that children 3 and under are at a critical stage for brain development. Too much screen time can overstimulate the visual cortex, and this is the part that processes images. Kids need structure. Time is an abstract concept for children. So this helps them feel like what 5 minutes would feel like, and how to transition between activities. So, meaning if you tell your kid, hey, you only have 10 minutes to play your game, and then you set your timer, they feel what that 10 minutes feels like, and then they transition on to what they're doing next. MayoClinic.com also discusses how screen time affects elementary kids. So we've talked a lot about little kids, but it does also have an effect on those elementary students. Any elementary student who spends more than 2 hours a day on screens are more likely to have emotional and social and attention problems. They have impaired academic performance, and it could also desensitize them to violence depending on what kind of things they're watching or games that they're playing. So that being said, let's discuss some of these strategies that we can take. So Dr. Holland offers 6 strategies in limiting screen time. They are to model health behaviors. If you're on your phone, they're going to do what you're doing. They want to be just like you. Delay introducing screens. If they don't know about it, they're not going to want it. Create clear rules and stick to them. Consistency is always huge with kids. Provide fun alternatives to screen. So this is meaning more work for the parents, which I know is hard, but sometimes we just have to come up with other ideas. Remember that screens are a privilege and it's not their right. and just let them be bored every now and then. This is where they're creative. This is where you're going to see them excel and do some really cool things. Mayo Clinic also offered some helpful strategies. They said just eliminate background TV, keep TVs, smartphones, and computers out of bedrooms, and try to avoid eating in front of screens. So, all of that being said, it's a really hard thing to raise kids in this day and age, but we really want to protect their brains. We really want them to be creative and to learn and not have any social development skills. So let's just do the best we can to keep our kids off screens.